Hey everybody, before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of ways that you can engage with me on a more personal level. I have a few avenues set up and I keep focusing on one, and I figured why don't I make a short little video talking about all of them real quick before we get into these episodes. So first thing, Patreon. There's a link in the episode description, in every episode description to the Patreon, as well as a video on the feed called Major Announcement that has all the details of what each tier offers and how much they cost. I implore you to check that out. I offer a lot of cool shit for my patrons. Second thing, the Discord channel. There's also a Discord link in the episode description and in every episode description. I have multiple channels set up there for each show that I'm covering, and it's a great way to just engage with me. I have a channel set up for MMA talk as well. I'm a big MMA fan, so if you're an MMA fan, you can check that out as well. There's a link to the Discord in the episode description. And then lastly, the Facebook and Twitter. Social media. Follow me on there. I post news on there. When I say news, I mean like, hey, I'm stopping covering this show. Hey, I'm starting covering this show. Let me know what you think about this. I do live watches of things on Facebook where like I'll check in and say I'm watching so-and-so show, and then I'll like live comment while I'm watching it, and that'll be cool if maybe you watch that show too and you want to watch along with me, or you're watching it later and you will see my thoughts, which are usually pretty entertaining because I'm usually pretty high when I'm writing them. So check out all those links in each episode description, and let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic, one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. One mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about Season 1, Episode 8 of Apple TV Shrinking, entitled Boop. So, there are a lot of things I like about this show. The episode titles, not one of them. Listen, Boop is a shitty title just off the strength of like an episode of television being named Boop. Like that like it's shitty just off top. But to name the episode after something so dumb and inconsequential to the episode, I just don't get it. Like, I don't understand. So Heidi Gardner's character appears again, titties pushed up to her fucking chin, and she's talking about how shitty her husband is and how he thinks his coffee is, I think what he says, like super tight or something like that, tight as hell coffee or whatever, I don't know, and how she wants to push his coffee off the table and all over his enormous balls. And then later, they have Jimmy boop Brian's beer because he's upset that Brian doesn't want him to officiate the wedding anymore. And I'm just left to wonder, like, this is what you thought was important enough to name the episode after? This stupid fucking gag? Like, it's not even funny? I feel like this is kind of crooked. There you go. That feels a little bit better. But yeah, I just thought that was such a terrible thing to name this episode title. Like, I don't understand their episode. I don't understand these decisions. Like, I feel like the episode title should speak to the heart of the episode. Boop was not the fucking heart of the episode. You know what I would have named the episode, though? I would have named it Freckle. Isn't that way better? Because like it references a scene that is important to the movie. I'm sorry, important to the show, to the episode specifically. So let's talk about the Freckle thing, because this whole season I've been saying that this show needs to stop treating Gabby as comic relief and explore her goddamn divorce. And finally, here at episode 8, I get what I wanted. And see, like, wasn't that good? Like, wasn't that good? Like, I've been saying, like, early on, I want to say, like, episode 2 or 3, I'm like, I really would like to see what her divorce was like, explore that a little bit, see the impact that's having on her. And we didn't get it until now, and wasn't it good, right? See? So, like, you guys should be listening to me. But don't you feel like you know so much more about Gabby now? Like, she went through this divorce. She shows up at Nico's art show just to make sure he's okay because he tends to relapse in high-pressure situations. And then we meet him. Dude seemed cool, right? Dude seemed all right. And I'm like, man, I wonder why they're getting a divorce or why they got a divorce. He's super nice to Gabby. He thanks her for coming. All this good shit, right? But then we see why they're divorced because, we don't see why they're divorced, but we see why this guy is bad for her. And because not only is he dating the woman that Gabby befriended, and to be clear, that's not his fault. Like that's not an affront to Gabby. Like he don't know that she just befriended her. So that's not saying that that's something that he did wrong. But my point is that's just another example of something he's doing that's just gonna add to Gabby's pain and anguish, right? But he's also claiming that the painting he made of her is made of the girl that he's dating now, and he calls that girl his muse. And Gabby had just told us that the painting was of her, and she was always his muse. I think wasn't it called like somebody's muse? It was something muse, I think is the name of the painting. And she has this whole rant about how she has a freckle like right here ish, and then the painting has one as well. And then she's like, I'm not gonna kink shame, but he likes to have a thumb in the butt, which I thought was an interesting kind of like callback to early on in the season when she was talking with Alice, and Alice was talking about sex or something. She was like, if you ever want to shut down unwanted sex, just put a thumb in the butt. And then she's like, in my butt or his? She's like, any butt. And I thought that was interesting because now we know that it's kind of contradictory what she was saying, because like she's saying if you want to put an end to something, you put a thumb in the butt, but then she's saying that the husband or the ex liked the thumb in the butt, so that I would imagine that wouldn't put it into anything. But I do still think it was kind of a cool little callback. But then if you don't watch it with captions, you might not have heard the rest. Like Sean is leaving and he's like, I think he was like apologizing or something, and I'm like reading Gabby's like rant on the screen, even though you can't see her and you can barely hear it. And she says something like, sometimes I put 2 fingers up there, and he just goes more and more and more and more. Like, it was like really funny stuff. So if you watch it, or you haven't watched it yet, or you watch it back or whatever, have the captions on so you can see like Gabby's little rant after she says that he likes a thumb in the butt, because she goes on about that for a couple more sentences, and it was pretty funny. So, but now we understand Gabby more, and we understand that this is a guy, the husband, Nico, who just casually hurts her. And I like understanding that about Gabby and her not just being comic relief. And I think it makes her a little bit more three-dimensional. And I would like for her to explore a little bit more of how this guy, who I'm assuming is probably someone who is constantly, maybe even like passive-aggressively being mean to her or shitting on her, whatever. I'd be interested in the show exploring, in maybe these final 2 episodes, just how that affects her life today. How it might affect future relationships she might have, whatever. I like what I got, but I would like a little bit more. Unfortunately, Jimmy has an even worse episode than Gabby, because he has to deal with his teenage daughter being extra fucking teenagery. And I felt for him because Alice was annoying the fuck out of me in this episode. And, side note here, I found myself putting the expectation of logical behavior on all characters whenever I'm watching a show, whenever I'm watching a movie. And sometimes I fail to take into account their age or their emotional state. So sometimes I'm harder on a character's depiction than I should be. And that kind of almost happened here, because make no mistake, Alice is dumb as fuck in every scene she's in this episode, continuing her several episode long streak of being obnoxious as fuck. But at the same time, she's a teenager. Teenagers going teenage. Like, she's a young, emotional girl who's been through an unimaginable amount of trauma. And I do think it's an unreasonable expectation of me to expect her to behave rationally. So I found myself, like, kind of ready to shit on the Alice character, but I'm like, okay, again, she's a teenager who's been through a lot. It makes sense she's going to be a little irrational. But still, annoying as fuck. So starting with the first scene we see her in, she's annoying as fuck. We see her being apologized to by Gabby and Jimmy for the sex that they had with each other. And then Alice tries to shit on Jimmy exclusively, talking about, oh, you're just gonna fuck your mom's best friend and mom's bed. And I absolutely loved how both Jimmy and Gabby called her on that bullshit. Like, Gabby owned her role in it, like it wasn't just him, it was me too. And then Jimmy immediately cut her down like it's my bed too. I love that, because it felt like she was trying to play the mom card so she can be indignant and have an opportunity to wag her finger at the adults. And I like how he was like, no, don't pull that shit, it's my bed too. And they tried to add the humor of him saying like, oh, it was her bed and we got it from her grandparents. But I still loved how they tried to how she tried to put it all on Jimmy, and neither one of them let her do that. I thought that was cool, because that's how you play that sort of scene, right? I said I want people to behave in a logical manner. It's logical for a teenage girl to behave unreasonably in that situation, but it's also logical for the adults to be adults and to nip it in the bud. So I appreciated the realism of that scene, and I just really liked him going like, hey, look, chill out, it's my bed too. Like, don't try to make it so like you making this whole thing like you feel like you could take the high road if you go, I'm mad because mom. And I like how they both checked her on that. She then later goes to Paul and complains to him as well about Jimmy. And I like that Paul checked her too. He's like, your dad's going through some shit. Give him a break. It's not all about you. And then she makes the "what the fuck do you mean I'm not the center of the universe" face. And that is the kind of face where, like, if you're a mother and you say that and your daughter looks at you like that, I feel like smacking the shit out of her is fully fucking justified. Like, she made a face like, who the fuck do you think you are? Talking to a 80 fucking year old man who's giving her very sound advice, is being very true. She's been hard as fuck on Jimmy. And yes, we know, we didn't see it obviously, but we know Jimmy has been absent ever since, what was her name? Tia? Ever since the mother passed away. But what we've seen on screen is a father trying to do his best and a daughter who is being unreasonable. And again, it makes sense for the character to be unreasonable. It makes sense for Paul to be like, hey, it's not all about you. It makes sense for her to react the way she did. But it was still annoying. and I didn't like that Paul apologized for what he did, but whatever. He is a therapist. He's not her grandfather. He did make it about himself, kind of, and it should have been about Alice. But I don't know, man. Like, she's so, I don't know. She's so unreasonable, and I want to say implausibly so. But again, a teenage girl going through what she's going through, it feels like being irrational makes sense. That seems like how she would be. But man, irrationality just drives me crazy. Oh man. And then of course, the last item of her being completely fucking unreasonable and irritating, she continues to be a petulant child who feels justified in doing whatever the fuck because apparently everyone can have sex except her, or whatever her fucking hang up is. And she takes Jimmy's car and she goes to visit the fucking college guy with the Vespa that we heard about in the scene with Paul. And I fully expected Jimmy to walk in on her, at best making out, at worst you know what. And I'm really glad that didn't happen because I didn't want to see that. But she gets home and very smugly and disingenuously is kind of like, yeah, my bad, it won't happen again. And then she picks up her phone and starts, like, you could tell she didn't mean it. She wasn't taking it seriously. She wasn't taking Jimmy seriously. She didn't expect him to do anything. She was taking advantage of that. And he ends the episode by punishing her anyway. And she says she fucking hates him. He's like, I fucking love you. But what I really loved about this scene is the fact that it came from Paul's advice. A scene earlier, Paul said that one of my favorite things I've heard this all season, probably my favorite thing I've heard this season, he said that Jimmy screwed up so many times that he thinks he doesn't have the right to be upset with anyone. And I thought that was such a great line. That's so true. You can feel like you're constantly if you're someone who has wronged someone else, if you truly feel remorseful for it, you can feel like you're in this mode of like, I have to make it up to you, like all the time. Like, I have to make it up. I can't fuck up again. And you might look at calling out their bullshit as you fucking up. But I like that the show essentially brought up that aspect of life that isn't often discussed in films and shows. The whole idea of like, I feel so guilty that I'm allowing you to do me wrong because I feel like almost like I owe you that. Like I owe you to do me wrong back. And I like the fact that Paul brought that up and that gassed up Jimmy enough to where he was cool with grounding Alice. I'm still mad about Alex for fucking for fucking 1923. But yeah, I thought that was cool. I thought it was really realistic. So I want to close with a few thoughts. I said I thought Alice's behavior was unacceptable because of her age. Meg's behavior, Paul's daughter, is not acceptable because of her age. Yeah, Paul was a dick in the last episode, and I totally get her being angry and the whole thing of him sounding like, him coming off like he didn't want to live with them until he actually needed them, and he was too much of an invalid to do things for himself. Like, I thought that was a good scene that made sense for that character in that moment, but he's trying to call her and make up, and the husband's like, Meg doesn't want to talk to you right now. And Paul's like, well, can you tell her that's childish? And I was like, yes. Can you please tell her that's childish? Like, I cannot stand a motherfucker who wants to give somebody the silent treatment instead of just hashing out whatever the fuck's going on. And like, I like and especially in a grave situation like this, no pun intended, but like a situation where like your dad is like in in a place where he's probably feeling like he's not going to be around much longer, and you feel like there's a good time to fuck around and play the silent treatment. So like, I did think that was really stupid of her, and I like that he said that that was childish, because it was. Like, fucking grow up. Like, if he's trying to call you and make it up to you, he's fucking 80 years old with Parkinson's. Answer the fucking phone, man. Like, that irritated me, because I don't like childish behavior from adults, and that's exactly what she was doing. I thought Brian not wanting Jimmy to officiate the wedding was like a wild overreaction. Like, did anyone else think that that was too much? Like, he got drunk at the engagement party, but people kept coming up to him, bringing up his dead wife and how great their relationship was when he knew they were having a bad relationship. Yeah, he got fucked up. Yeah, he got drunk. Whatever. Like, it doesn't mean like that's the expected behavior of him every day going forward, is to get drunk and puke and embarrass himself. Like, I feel like that was a wild overreaction to him throwing up at an engagement party that you had at his house, by the way. He's like I feel like, okay, yes, that's embarrassing, but chill out. He's at his own fucking house. Like, I don't know. I don't want you to ruin my wedding, so you can't do this thing that's important to you, and I'm assuming you're gonna ruin my wedding because you had this slip up at your house at a party that I sprung on you last minute the other day. Like, that feels very unfucking reasonable to me. And like, unless a bunch of Brian and his husband's wedding guests are gonna be asking Jimmy about his dead wife, then I think you're okay with him not getting drunk at the wedding. So I thought that was really shitty of Brian. And I really like Brian, but that was really fucking shitty. And I felt like that was a weak reason to do that. Continuing to love Gabby and Liz together. I think they make a great team. You know, I said it the very first episode they paired up. I was like, I think I like this group. And apparently the show did as well, because we've been getting Gabby and Liz, what we call it, Labby? Giz. We've been getting Giz a whole every episode since, so I appreciate that. I appreciate getting Giz. And then lastly, I like when they were going to the garden party. Paul is like, "Why is Kevin here?" And I thought that was a great line, because Brian's like, "One, it's my car," which I thought that was funny. But I thought it was a cool kind of double joke, because it was a reference to how he keeps calling Brian Kevin. And I just thought that was fun. Nice little callback. So that's all I got for this week. Let me know what you thought about this one in the comments. I believe we got 2 more left. I think it's been a great season. It's been funny. It's been interesting. I'm curious to see how this is gonna wrap up. I think they need to. We didn't see much of Sean this week. Probably gonna need to square up some stuff with Sean. Alice and Jimmy, you're gonna have to get good again. I really would like to see them explore some stuff with Gabby. We're gonna have to wrap up Liz's empty nest syndrome thing she's got going on, and Paul and Meg. So lots of interesting things to wrap up in these final 2 episodes. I will see you guys next week for episode 9, and until then, peace.